What would we do without YouTube telling us how to do various jobs? Well, in this case, I couldn't really find anything to tell me how to do this particular job. So I thought I'd just make a record really for my own benefit, because I forget things in minutes. The problem is that the side stand here on this Honda Hornet was really loose, because the bike's done many miles, over 53,000, it's been well used, and there was an awful lot of play on the side stand, and I thought that the bolt that went through the stand was probably worn. So one of the winter jobs I decided to do was to have a look, see what could be done. Now I've actually done the work, because as you can see the stand is nicely painted or repainted, and I need to put it together properly, but before I do, I just put it together loosely so we could see how it was done. So obviously there's a nut on the end of the pivot bolt, and of course everything's loose at the minute because I've been working on it. That light's a bit in the way. The first thing you have to do is remove the spring. This is usually where people get themselves into all sorts of trouble and cut themselves with screwdrivers and odds and ends. What I've used over the years, many years, I used 2 loops of ordinary wire, just as you can see, and I've got my trusty tool. It's an agricultural tool that I've had for years, and I use that to apply pressure. So what I do with springs, stand springs, any stand spring, just pop that over the open end, which is there if it can be seen. Pop my trusty implement in, pull it down, and off it comes. So that's one, and then there's a second spring. Now I don't know what that spring's for, maybe it's some sort of harmonic, but there we are. There's the pair of springs are off. When you put it back on, you have to make sure that that piece, the square piece, is that way round, because the switch, the side stand switch, fits in that corner, there. So there's a spring. Incidentally, obviously everything has been really cleaned off, because it was just caked with chain fling. So although it's not perfectly clean, it's reasonable. So there's the pivot pin, and on the other end of the pivot pin there's a little bolt that goes into it. And I'll just get down, and you can see there's a plastic device, I hope, which is the side stand switch. You have to take the spring off before you can get that side stand spring off, and there's a small bolt holding it on, which fits into the head of the pivot pin. So obviously it's all loose because I've been working on it. Take the little bolt out, and there is the switch. And as you can see, there's a spigot there that fits into a recess in the actual stand. So and that piece at the top fits into the spring pivot. There's a little spigot that it pops into, and then the spring goes on the far end. So get rid of that, the switch, and then you've just got the stand pivot. So you need a suitable spanner. This isn't tight because obviously I've been working on it, so it should come off quite easily, and it is threaded. so you have to fight it all the way out. It was far tighter than this when I took it off first time. Oh, and this video will run out in 15 minutes, so if I haven't finished by then, hopefully everyone will know what to do. This is the worst part, just getting this pin out, because as I say, it's threaded. If I was sensible, I'd have a socket and a ratchet. Pull back a bit, see if I can get the details in. There we are, it's unscrewing. The thread's on this side of the stand. I've actually done a little bit of refurbishment on the stand, as I said before, but I'll show you that when I've got it off. I was a little bit surprised where the wear came from. I expected the pin to be quite well worn, and I was pleasantly surprised. Right, there we come. Now there's the pin, and it was very rusty, which showed that all the chain fling didn't get into the bearing surface, but there's no wear on it. If I put some calipers on it, I made these calipers years ago when I was a trainee, and I use them all the time. Yeah, if you run the calipers round, there's next to no wear on that pin, which surprised me. I thought the pin would be worn, but it isn't. So that's probably sort of a medium carbon steel. Right, so this will now pull off. There's a couple of spacer washers. Now, I have a selection of these very thin washers. They're used to pack out electric motors and things, end float and all that kind of stuff. And I found that I can put one either side of this and take up a lot of the play. The pin is okay, but the mild steel bracket is where the wear is, as you can see. A lot of floppy movement there. There's two ways out of this. You could ream it, turn up a bobbin and put it in, maybe put just weld the corners, but it's not that bad in this case. This is obviously just mild steel, so that's worn. But the important point to remember is that nothing from the chain fling got through to that pivot, so you do need to occasionally give that some lubrication down there, and then hopefully you won't get as much wear. The stand itself I haven't touched. I've left the clevis at the top because there's no wear on it. There's the little indent where the switch pin sits. There's the switch pin there, and it fits in there. So that's the main switch if you ever need to change it. And well, of course it's unlikely to. It's really well made. I was quite surprised. So apart from putting some packing pieces in here, I welded an 1x8 plate on the back of the original pad. I made it about half an inch longer on the back and perhaps 3/4 of an inch longer on the front, so you can see where I've welded it all the way around. I've isoponed it round the welds to make it look, I mean you don't need to, but I thought as it was off I would smooth it out, make it look better. So putting it back together is just a reversal of what I've done. Use my trusty method of putting a loop of double wire over it. There's all sorts of ways people do. Some people pack these out with springs. Not so easy with this one because it's a double spring. Just remember, when you put it back on, put the top on first. The big loop goes at the bottom, the small loop goes at the top. And remember that you have to put it on the right way so that that clears the switch, if you can see. It's as simple as that. So simple reversal, and when I do it, obviously I shall use molybdenum grease on there, and in the future I'll keep an eye on it, because if it does wear any more, and it shouldn't because these are stainless steel washers, I'll either weld that and drill it, or ream it out, make a bobbin, push it in, and fix it that way. So now I shall put it together properly with grease and all the rest of it, and hopefully that might be useful for somebody.